I'll just pan the table, and I'll pan to you. So whenever you're ready.
Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to Art Talk Tuesday. My name is Jackie G and I'm with Gwartzman's Art Supplies here in Toronto. I hope you all have a chance to check us out. If you're in the downtown area, we are located between Kensington Market and Chinatown. To me, two of the best areas to be in. You can also follow us on Instagram. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and all social media. And before I forget, because I always do, I'm going to wave and say hi to everyone. Thank you for tuning in from those in Canada, the US, and I know we've had some international following us and watching us, so thank you very much for tuning in. I get really excited and I'm really starting to think about what I want to talk about on Tuesdays just to share some information with you. If anything is just to hear me talk about new product, what's happening in our industry, and believe me, as small an industry as we are, there's always something happening, and maybe to share some information about product that you may not be familiar with. There are thousands of items, thousands of products, thousands of companies worldwide, and we get to share a smidgen of what is out there. And as I say, I always like to focus on something you may not be familiar with and just to let you know what I've been thinking about. So today is a little bit different, and I wanted to talk about a topic, and it suddenly hit me. This is something that I hear almost weekly for many, many years, and I thought, you know what, it's time just to chat about it. So we often hear the words in the store, gee, I got a pen and it's leaking through my paper and it's the pen's fault. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not your pen. Please don't blame the mighty pen. Don't blame all those fantastic markers that you've been using over the years. Don't blame any of them. It's the paper. And your paper has to work well with the pens that you're using. Now, I'm not here to say, I know there's lots of you that use pen, you have your favorite paper. I'm not going to change your mind, and I don't want to change your mind. There are things that we get really used to in the texture, in the fiber, in the way it feels. I'm just sort of here to show you what some of the alternatives are, what may work better for certain things, and then options are open for you. And of course, if you have any questions, if I can answer it, please text while I'm speaking and I'll do my best. You can reach us afterward and get in touch with our customer service if you have any questions. All of the products that I show or talk about are in our store, which we'd love to see you, or you can find it on our website, gwartzmans.com. So what I did was I've pulled out all the pens and papers and stuff, and I've sort of set them up in the way I want to talk about them. But I just wanted to show you some product that I did a test on just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So often we get people coming in, and as I say, it's always my pens are leaking, they're going through the paper and blah, 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 and it's my pen. So I did a test on a few different papers, and just to show you. Now, I didn't do every single pen, because as I say, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what the reaction is with certain papers. So, for instance, this is just a typical sketch paper. Your sketch papers tend to be about a 50, maybe 65 pound. Your drawing papers are heavier. So I used 3 different pens just for the sake of argument. I did a Sharpie, I did an alcohol marker, and I did a Posca. So the top line is just where I took the pen and just went straight on the paper. The bottom one is where I held it down a little bit and went over it twice. Same thing with the alcohol marker. Oops. And when we're live, things can happen. And then the bottom, same with the Posca. So it shows clean line and then going over it twice. Now I'm just going to turn to the back just to give you an idea. So this is what happened. So the Sharpie wasn't too bad from the back side. The alcohol marker went through. The Posca was clean, so you don't get anything on the back. Now, this can just be an anomaly. It's the way I put it down. As I say, I didn't do all the different pen and inks. This was just a choice of mine just to show you. But I wanted to show you something. So when you do the single line, even with the Sharpie and your alcohol marker. Now I press down a little bit just to give you an idea what happens, and there's feathering. And I know that can be really annoying when you're doing your drawing and you get that feathering. Now this is a sketch paper, so I'm just showing you exactly what can happen. Now what happened also when I put this down, and you can see it a little bit here, there is some buckling to the paper. You see the way it got absorbed, so that the paper is not exactly the heaviest and best for marker. If you were to come in and say to our staff, you know, I want to use can I use this sketch paper for marker? We would probably say it's not the best for it. Of course, you know, it's always your decision on what you like, what texture you like, the feel. These are great. Your sketch paper is great for your dry media. So that's what we would initially recommend. If you're going to do marker, of course, but you've got to be aware you're going to get some feathering because it's going to get picked up in the fibers. You may see the marker coming on the back, you know, but it is an option. So that's always there for you, and you'll get the buckling. So I'm just going to put that behind me because I actually didn't put out any sketch papers that I'm suggesting for your pen or ink. Now this one is a little bit different because I'm sure most of you haven't seen this. This came out a couple years ago by Fredericks, which was a big canvas company, and they came out with a marker canvas. So I just wanted to show that there is an option for someone who wants to draw with markers and do something really creative on canvas. It was the same thing where I did the Sharpie, the alcohol, and the Posca. Now to me, Poscas are great because on this kind of surface, they're really going to pop. Your alcohol markers aren't as strong an ink, so it'll show up, but I think forget that really bright, opaque color. Your Poscas would be the best on this. You could use alcohol inks. You could use FW, which is an acrylic-based ink, or any acrylic-based ink that you have. So just to show you something that's a little bit different. Oh, and I should show you that's the back side. So you can see that because it is a canvas, nothing went through the back of the sheet. This comes in pads and in rolls. So the next one I did, and I'm going to skip that one till the end. So this is mixed media. Mixed media is probably one of the most popular pads on the market these days because it is a heavier weight paper. So it is great. It's recommended for all types of dry media. It's always recommended for your watercolors. Some companies would probably say, you know, light markers and things like that. So again, what I did was I'm showing you the Sharpie, the alcohol marker, and the Posca. Now, the first thing that I'll point out is there is no buckling. So that was the one thing that I wanted to show you, that the difference between this and the sketch paper was that there wasn't any buckling when I put this down on this paper. Now, when I turn it over, same kind of thing, where we've got the Sharpie on top, the alcohol marker, which again, seeped through, and then your Posca. And when I go from the front, you can see that when I held down the pen just to put some pressure on it, there was definitely some bleeding right at the initial. The other thing that I forgot to point out was I also went over things twice. So you can see that some colors didn't show up as intense. And you know, you want to a lot of times have your black to look really black, or your color, your Sharpie red, you know, it looks okay, but I have to go over it a couple times, and then when you go over it enough, it may just go through your paper or not pop. So that's the whole idea in doing all these tests, just to show you what they'll do. The last one I tested, and this is just one random sheet because I've got different brands, and this is a marker sheet. So the idea behind a marker pad is they're made specifically for your pen, your markers. And it is a smoother paper. It does not have any texture to it, and that's so that your pens are really going to pop. It's going to be a little bit different for your dry media because it's not there to grab like it would with the, you know, the fibers that you get in your drawing or your sketch papers or mixed media. So again, I did the 3 tests of the 3 different pens, and you can see what I did. And so I did want to show you that, you know, even when you go over it sometimes, if you're not careful, you may have that overlap, but the colors look pretty good. Now this particular one kind of surprised me because I'm going to show you the back. So this one had a little bit of bleeding. Now this might happen because I was going over it. I did put pressure because I wanted to show you what would happen if you press down, to try and show you what happens if you know, we sometimes we have a heavy hand, and so we go harder on the paper, but just to show you what it'll do. So this happens to be just one brand of marker paper, just to show you what it would do and why I would sometimes recommend this over other papers for your pen and your markers. So that being said, now we've got a lovely table all set up with some goodies. And I chose different product just to show you which ones that I personally and our staff, and we have some illustrators on staff, and they've made some suggestions for me, which I'm going to mention. But you can always ask us which paper we recommend. And of course, if you're experimenting, please experiment. I mean, we're all into multimedia and we like to put things on top. There are pros and cons to that. I'm not sure if I'll address that because that topic can blow up into so many different things. But just to give you an idea what we would recommend for certain papers that we stock. So we're going to go to this side because we've got all these lovely, beautiful, absolutely beautiful drawing pads. Now, these have just arrived, and I'm going to open this up. We have had these before. These papers are from Tibet. Now, the paper is slightly yellow. That is just the way that they make it. These two are new, and they're just going to be a very fibrous kind of paper. If you're thinking like your Japanese type papers, same idea. So even this one, which is from Korea, it is very, very smooth. A little bit fibrous for me, but gorgeous. Now, I personally would recommend for these types because we don't want to take a chance when you're writing something beautiful, or in the Alibabette, which I should mention I just love. The paper is gorgeous. It's just beautiful and smooth. They have really nice product. So for any of these, I would go for things that go on like a Pilot G-Tech, which is a needle tip, or, which I'm a huge fan of these. I know not everybody likes all the metallic, but this is a metallic pen from Pentel. It's the hybrid. The G-Tech, which again is a needle tip, great. And of course your Sarasa. So for me, for being left-handed, these are beautiful and perfect. Or any type of gel pen. So these will work great on here because they're going to sit on the surface. They're not going to sink through. They're not going to spread. And I know some of you love using fountain pen. If I was using a fountain pen, I would probably put into the Alibabette or the Leuchtturm, anything that's got a smoother surface, because you know if you put any of the inks on there, they're gonna bleed, and then you're gonna ask me why. Same thing with this. This is a great mixed media pad from SMLT. Now I chose the Bristol pad because there are some pen artists that are huge fans of this particular one. Now this one I would use with any of the gels and things, but you could certainly go into using your Copic multi-liner, the Microns. You could also, I know we've got it here because we pulled so many things. Sailor pen. So the Sailor pen would work, you know, nicely on that. And nice thing about these also is they're small, so you can put them in your pocket and not worry about it. So then I would move to the Yupo pads, and Yupo have been a huge sensation for a long time. And the Yupo is a non-absorbent paper, so it works well with anything if you wanted to do ink like your Piñata, or if you wanted to use any of these other inks, you know, the Zillers, the fountain pen, or the pearlescent from FW. Any of these, a lot of these pens will work great because they're going to sit on top. You're not stuck with the gel pens. And they come in different weights, so if you're looking to try something with the Yupo just to see the effects, these are really, really nice to test out and play with. Then, I've always liked these. These are Bristol pads, and I pulled two different brands just to show you. This is from Canson, these are Fabriano. Same idea, different brand, slightly different texture. So, There are two that they make, and one of them is the vellum surface, your vellum surface, which I don't think you can see very well from the camera, but it does have a texture to it. Now I will tell you the vellum surface in the Fabriano is more textured than the vellum surface from Canson. So there is a difference even when you go into the Bristol pads. The Bristol pads are typically great, the vellum surface, for your dry media. So because it's got the texture. So if you put anything else on it, you are going to see some feathering. The weight is great because it's like 100 pound. So in a Bristol board type, it's perfect. But your smooth has no texture. So it's got enough if you want to put a bit of all your dry media, but if you want to put a bit of ink, these are nice to incorporate with your ink. Now, again, you may get a bit of feathering because it's not a really slick surface, but they do work well. So if I'm doing, pen and ink, that kind of thing, I have no problem putting it on a smooth surface for Bristol. I could put it on, the Yupo. But the Bristol pads, I don't think a lot of people think about because they think of Bristol board. This is not Bristol board. This is a quality paper, and they're always available from all these different brands. And then we go over to some of these other cool stuff. Now you can get specifically into pen and ink and marker pads, and I'm going to talk about these because there are so many different kinds now. So pen and ink is a newer type of pad. The paper is a little bit thinner. It does have a nice smooth surface. The nice one about the one from Canson, it does have a perforated, so it's micro perf, so you can remove it. So if I'm looking for something and I just want to do my pen and ink, I'm going to look for a pen and ink pad. I know that they are specific to that. And we also have from Canson now that they make a marker pad. So if you want something that is specifically for marker, that is one option. This paper is a little bit thinner if you want something like that. Now, sometimes some of these, and I'll show you with some of these other ones, they're great if you want to do an overlay, like if you want to put something underneath to trace it. That's what some of these other ones are great for. And they've been around a long time, so it's not something that I'm showing you that's just brand new on the market, tried and true. So I'm just going to make some room here so I can pull some things over to show you. Because I do have my favorites, so I will tell you that. So also newer on the market is, now they call it black and it's drawing paper, so the drawing is a little bit heavier weight. The great thing about this is a super black paper. So if you're looking to do anything with any bright ink, it's going to pop. If you're going to use your Poscas are going to pop on the black. If you're looking to do, use white, because white metallics, they're all very, very popular right now. They're going to really pop on this type of paper. And I know a lot of companies spent a lot of time because there has been difficulty in making like a really super black paper. If you look at some brands, they fade quickly or they don't stand up. So a lot of brands have been really investigating on keeping this in like a really unique type of shade. So it's something to think about when you're looking around. We actually had one from Fabriano as well. Unfortunately, I don't have it on the table because it was sold out. We do have more coming in. But just to show you an option when you're looking to do some ink. Now, if you're in a lot of the college programs, work with a lot of these. Now, these have been around forever. The Bienfang Graphics 360, anybody in illustration graphic design, this is what they would have used in school. This is a thinner, translucent type of marker paper, but it doesn't bleed. So if you're looking to put any markers down and you don't want any bleeding, this is the paper that you want to look at. The Graphics 360, as I say, it's been around forever. And it obviously has a following because it does what it says. So that's the whole idea behind it. Borden Riley, whoopsie. Borden Riley makes something similar. And they make the graphics, the number 37. This one happens to be the number 100. So this one is 100% rag if you're looking for 100% rag paper. Now I'm going to show you this one because this is what I was talking about in something that's thinner and a little bit translucent. So what you can do, I'll put that underneath, so you can see that through it. Sorry, Hannah, I can lift that up so you can see it there. And so if you were doing something and you wanted to have an overlay, this is the kind of paper that would you use, so you can trace from it. But as far as working for markers, that's what these are made for. They are made specifically for that purpose. Borden Riley also makes they call it chalk white, so it's an opaque bond. This is a little bit heavier than the other one that I showed you in the translucent paper. And you could put marker on this one. Again, it is more opaque. So if I put this set again underneath for you to see it, it's not as easy to see through. It's not as translucent, but as something that is a marker paper, this is great. So it's just another option for you to think about when you're putting things down. Now I'm going to show you my favorite. It's been my favorite for years, so that's why we continue to stock it any way we can. And this is again made by Borden Riley. This is specifically their Paris paper, bleed proof, white, made for pens. It is a heavyweight paper. You can hear it just from me flicking it. It's not a cardstock, but it's a nice heavy weight. It is not translucent. It is opaque and nice and slick and perfect for all kinds of pens. It doesn't come in all the different ways, where you can get coil and stuff. I think they've come out with a coil, which we've had, but just as something where you can put your pen on it and not worry about it going through. So I've put out a number of different, products as well where we think that they would certainly show up. Of course, we're not limited to all of these things, and I'm sure a lot of you will probably be getting in touch with me to tell me all of your suggestions, and I love it. But that's what we're here for. We're here to learn from each other. A couple things that I wanted to point out. I was recommended by one of our staff who was in illustration that these from Pilot are great if you're looking to correct mistakes. So if you want to go over something and you want to correct your Copic markers, let's say, or correct any of your pens, these are great to put down first and then you can correct your mistake. So it's a great pen from Pilot. We also, which we're getting in more of, is a pen and ink cleaner from Dr. Martin. A lot of you sometimes would leave, your lovely nibs with the ink in them and they all get dried out and it's not what we like. So pen cleaner is the great way to do it, to keep your pens clean. If you're really in a bind, actually I wouldn't recommend it with these. I know it used to work with technical pens years ago, and you could use very hot water with a little bit of mild soap detergent and let them soak. But since we don't have technical pens anymore, I'm not going to give you the advice on how to clean all of these other things. I'm sure you all have your tried and true ways of doing it, and please if it works, please keep doing it. Couple things that I wanted to also point out while I was getting it ready, just because they're kind of neat. A lot of people have taken up drawing with the bamboo pens, so that you would dip it into your, I happen to be like this color, but that's why I chose it. So you could dip this in and you could put it on any of these great papers, just to try something that's a little bit different, take you out of your comfort zone. And I also wanted to show you these from Copic. And what it says on these multi-liners, first of all, one of my staff mentioned that they find these beautiful because they're really super black. Now, it does say waterproof and Copic proof, which means that if you put it down and then you go and work with your other Copic markers, they're not going to move. Something also to keep in mind. And that's another thing, when you're looking at your pens, look at also what it says, if it's waterproof, water resistant, water-based, ink dyes. There's so many different kinds. I mean, I don't want that to stop you from using so many wonderful pens. I've pulled out so many here just to show you, just so we can even play a little bit. So I'm going to use my marker paper just to show you what some of them will do. This is a new one from Kuratucky. So it is a brush pen, and now this is I'm going to put it down. So it is supposed to work like a water dye, and you can see the way it overlaps and moves. But if I wanted something just nice and soft and nice colors, that's a really nice pen, and they're not really expensive. Again, from Pentel, we could put this one down. This is their brush pen. So if you're thinking of eyeliner just for your paper, and I can put that down very lightly. And they have a really nice color. Again, these are water-based. None of these are an alcohol base. Alcohol base, you know, is going to have a nice, strong smell, so I tend to stay away from those. Now, when you look at the back, they have not gone through the back, so they really work well on this type of paper. There was another one that I had pulled, and let's just see if I have it open here, because I kept moving things around. I think that's most of them that I have. But you know what? We have tons of stuff here, so you can always come in and take a look and see what's available. And if you have any questions, just please ask our staff. I know I've shown you a lot of different things and put out a lot of my favorites. And as I say, if you have your favorites, let us know. I'm always interested in what our customers are looking at and what you're interested in. It's always good for me to learn from you too. Are there any questions, Hannah?
Someone just wanted a clarification on what 100-pound means for the Canson.
Okay. So that is actually a whole different topic because weights of paper depend, it's done by tonnage actually. So every manufacturer that we work with has a different definition of what a paper would be like. So 100-pound in this Canson Bristol is going to be different than if I showed you 100-pound by, let's say, a Robert Bateman pad, which is a 98-pound, but it's a drawing paper. So it gets very confusing that way in weights of paper. We've tried and understand it as best as possible. I think we actually had a write-up in one of our blogs about it as well. It is an interesting topic. Sometimes the feel is also what's going to help. So in these particular, in your Bristol, 100-pound is like a card. So you can hear that. It is like a lightweight Bristol paper, but it is an artist quality. So if that helps you to sort of understand it, that's the best way I can tell you to look at it. If you look at a sketch pad, sketch paper, it's usually 50-pound, 55, maybe 65-pound. When you go into drawing papers, they tend to be 75-pound. Some go into 98-pound. You can't compare it with your watercolor papers, which generally start at about a 98-pound, because the weight is going to be very different, not very similar to what all this is. But some of your writing papers are going to vary as well. And so, as I say, it gets very confusing. It's a whole other topic that we haven't exactly figured out all the answers to either. But it's good to come in and ask questions, and then you can feel the different weights, and then that will also help you get an idea of what you can do. I did not show any watercolor paper here because watercolor paper to me is not specific to pen and ink. You can use some of it on with your pens and your ink. You are going to get some feathering generally, but as I say, this was just a focus on, because we don't want you to blame the pen anymore. Please don't blame your pen. Please look at all the papers that are out there that can maybe help you and give you a solution to something that you've been wondering about for a long time.
Everyone says thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope this helped answer any of your questions. As I say, I'm just here to share information that we have that might make it interesting for you. Next week might be some new products that arrived. It might be something that I've just thought about that I wanted to share with you about some of the interesting mediums that we have. There's always something to talk about. So until next week, have a great day. Have a great week. I'm going to wave again. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Follow us on Instagram. Let us know. Like us. Share and get in touch. Let us know. You can still, if you want to use the phone, we're still here to answer the phone too. Anyways, bye-bye for now. Take care.